Hey Sunspace Sun, I'm Daisy Victoria. Today we're going to put together this beautiful cloak with a hood. This is a full circle. It has a lot of volume. It's so fun to wear. And it's actually a pretty simple project to do in terms of complexity. And I am quite confident that you will be able to do it yourself. After I made my cloak, I also made a matching one for my American Girl doll. So it's basically just a tiny version of my cloak. I'm using this beautiful crushed velvet pané in a light pink. I feel like this color is sort of like rose quartz. I think that's what we'll call it. This is rose quartz crushed velvet pané. It's so beautiful. It may not be the absolute easiest fabric to work with because it does have that velvet nap and it is also stretchy. So do keep that in mind if you're selecting a fabric and maybe you're newer at this, you might want a non-stretch to start out with. You can absolutely use this one starting out too. It's not really that big of a deal, just a little tip. Because this cloak is a full circle, it does take quite a lot of fabric. I used 7 yards for mine. I need to cut a full circle out of my fabric. Now, this fabric is only so wide. I think it's about 58 inches, 54, something like that. It's the wider width of fabric. But anyway, I had to cut the circle in 2 half circles. And to do this, I measured how long I want the cloak. And right here, I am cutting that bottom hem of the cloak right there, like the bottom of the circle or the circumference. And I'm measuring that out using a tape measure and making sure to just cut that the same length all the way around. Now my circle is also accounting for a cutout, which is going to be the neck area. So when I measured the length, I also added that in. To get the neck cutout, I measured basically how big I wanted the neckline to be. And then I divided that by pi and then divided that by 2 to get the radius. So that radius is actually added on to the length to get the full measurement all the way from corner to hem, because I'm actually going to cut out that radius at the top here. So that means that I've got a little cutout at the top here that's forming the neckline of the cloak. And do keep in mind that this is 1/2 of that neckline, right? Because I'm cutting it in 2 halves. This is also really similar to how I made a circle skirt in a prior video, by the way, in case you want to see a different sort of example of cutting out circles from fabric. If you can get down cutting out circles from fabric, you've got a really good skill under your belt. This is a cloak pattern hood that I've used before. It doesn't really matter if you're exact on the shape and size of the hood as long as it fits over your head. So you want it to be at least as tall as from your shoulder to the top of your head, preferably a bit taller so you have a nice little billowy shape. And you want it to be wider than all the way around your head. So pretty much anything that's shaped something like this is going to give you that effect. If you want to see more of a demonstration of taking the measurements needed, I will show you that when I get to the doll cloak on the doll herself. So you can kind of see in small scale more of a visual on actually measuring all these things out, in case that helps to make it make a little bit more sense. Now, to sew the cloak together, I started by sewing the hood right sides together. So once I have the hood together, I'm also sewing the back seam of the cloak, because remember I have 2 half circles here to form 1 big circle. So I'm simply matching those up and then stitching that so that it becomes 1 big circle with an opening in the front. Okay, next it's time to add the hood onto the cloak. So I'm just going to pin that right sides together. So the hood is going to match up onto the neckline of the cloak, and I'm just going to sew those together. I added a cute little leaf clasp to mine. I think it has that really nice, like, magical, foresty elven feel, which I happen to love so much. Now, when I tried this cloak on the mannequin, here's something that I do want to note. Because this fabric is stretchy, it's gonna drape and like hang so that it stretches out that neckline, and it doesn't really quite fit right. So what we are going to do is add something to stabilize. So what I did here is I added a piece of ribbon, which this is non-stretch, very, very important. And I just folded that over the seam there and I stitched that down. And that helps to stabilize the seam right there. I'm cutting armholes in this because I love having armholes in my cloaks. So to get those, I simply tried on the cloak here, and then I looked at about where I wanted the armholes to be. So I put these halfway down the circle, so it's like equidistant from the front to the back. You can put them more toward the front if you want. It doesn't really matter. It's just whatever's comfortable for you. And I did finish off the edges of those armholes. I started using the rolled hem on my serger, but then I ended up going over the edges with the zigzag on my regular machine. And all the rest of the hems on this cloak are just the rolled hem on my serger. So you can get that sort of effect with the zigzag stitch on your machine as well. Now, if you want to do a more regular hem, like where you fold over the fabric and stitch it down, you can obviously do that as well. If you are using stretch velvet, the rolled hem, or if you want to do a zigzag hem, is much, much easier. Or if you want to use a binding or something, that would make it easier as well. So we can't forget the American Girl dolls. They need a cloak too. This time I'm using Sage, and she's already wearing a medieval dress, so I think it'll go really well together. I'm measuring how long I want the cloak to be, so from her neck to the floor. This is what I did with myself as well. And then I'm also going to need to measure how wide I want the neckline, so measuring around her neck right there. And then I'm also going to need to measure around her head to make sure that the hood is big enough to go around her head. I actually really like showing you guys this small scale version because sometimes when I have really large pattern pieces, I simply don't have the space to set it out so you can get a really clear film shot of like the entire huge piece. But here with the American Girl doll clothes, you totally can see the whole piece. So I actually am finding that I really enjoy looking at these video clips and seeing the whole piece laid out. And I really hope that helps you too. So once again, the sewing steps are pretty simple. I sewed the two circle halves together. That's the back seam of the cloak, and that open part will be the front. I sewed the hood together and turned that right side out. And then I sewed the hood onto the cloak. Just like with my cloak, I am serging all of my seams here. If you don't have a serger, you can easily use the zigzag stitch on your regular machine, and that'll finish off the edge in a very similar manner. For the doll cloak, I did the stabilization of the neckline a little bit differently. I just sewed the ribbon on, like, not folded over, just regular, and that's because I decided to leave the ends really long so it can actually tie around her neck. You could also put a little clasp on there, but I just thought this was really cute instead of giving her what would be a really huge clasp to match mine. So I like the way this one turned out. I think it's really adorable. And of course the dolls need some armholes also in their cloak. So I looked at where I wanted those armholes on Sage here, and then I just cut the little armholes and finished them off, this time entirely with the zigzag stitch. It was way easier than trying to finagle in the serger. I did have enough fabric scraps left over to make a second cloak just like this, so I made a matching cloak for my sister Estelle's dolls to wear. I am a total fan of this cloak. I think it's really fun, it's really versatile, and personally I am a fan of this rose quartz pink color, so bonus! If you guys do want to see more of like a PDF pattern style for something like this cloak or other cloaks, please do let me know. I know that this isn't very like complex shapes, but sometimes that pattern is just what you need. So just comment below if that's something you want, and I will put that on my list of things to digitize into like a PDF format. I totally can see myself wearing this cloak to so many places. Not only is it perfect for Renaissance festivals, you could wear it to LARPs, you could wear it just because it's kind of cool outside and you want to look really badass, like, hello. Obviously you could wear this cloak for Halloween or for some sort of costume or dress-up party. It would be great for a Lord of the Rings or some other elf character, a Dungeons and Dragons character, you name it. This cloak is totally the coolest thing ever, if I do say so myself, and also easy to make. So I would love to see all of you guys with your circle cloaks very soon. If you do make a circle cloak, please do share it with me because I really do want to see it. I think it'll be so amazing and I'm going to be really so excited for you. You can find me on all the social medias as Daisy Viktoria. My website is daisyviktoria.com, and a special thank you to my patrons on Patreon who help me so much to continue creating amazing content like this. I hope you all have an absolutely magical day, and I hope to see your cloaks, whether they're full-sized or doll-sized or both, very soon. Bye-bye!